Welcome back to the Before AGI podcast.
Yeah.
Today we're doing a deep dive into something pretty interesting that you sent our way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's Anthropics' responsible scaling policy.
Hmm.
And I know
I know what you mean.
policy
Doesn't exactly sound
pretty exciting.
Right.
but trust me.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is where things get really interesting.
Uh-huh.
This is basically Anthropics' plan for making sure super smart AI doesn't, turn into like a sci-fi
A sci-fi horror story.
horror story.
Yeah, definitely.
exactly. It's like they're trying to.
Yeah.
You can think of it as a blueprint for navigating a future where AI is
It's like a rule book
incredibly powerful,
that we're only just starting to imagine.
but also potentially dangerous.
Right.
So it's really important to think about this now.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And one of the first things they do in this policy is they create this system for classifying AI based on its potential for harm.
Okay.
Kind of like the biosafety levels
Oh, okay.
they use for handling dangerous viruses.
Gotcha.
They call them safety levels, or ASLs for short.
Okay, so the higher the ASL,
That's right.
the more careful we need to be.
Exactly. The higher the level, the greater the potential consequences
Yeah.
if things go wrong.
If things go wrong.
Right now, most AI systems,
Mm-hmm.
even advanced ones like Anthropics Quad,
Right.
are considered ASL2.
ASL2.
Yeah.
So that means like
Early warning signs.
early warning signs.
But not an immediate red alert.
Right, not quite there yet.
Exactly. They're showing some glimpses of potentially dangerous capabilities, but they're not quite at the point where they could cause
Gotcha.
widespread harm.
Okay.
But Anthropic knows that AI is evolving rapidly,
Right.
and they don't want to be caught off guard.
Yeah.
So that's where these capability thresholds come in.
Okay, so these thresholds
Like
are like tripwires.
tripwires.
They go off when an AI starts getting too close
Too close.
to being able to do some really scary stuff.
Yeah, really scary stuff.
Yeah.
And they've identified two major ones that they're particularly focused on.
Okay.
The first is the ability to help someone with just basic science knowledge develop CBRN weapons.
Oh, wow.
So that's chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear weapons.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
definitely not something we want
No.
floating around out there.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And the second tripwire is something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Okay.
It's AI that's so smart, it can actually design the next generation of even more powerful AI.
Oh, wow.
So they call this autonomous AI R&D,
Yeah.
and it's a scenario where things could spiral out of control very, very quickly.
So it's like AI becoming its own
Digital mad scientist.
and creating even smarter AI.
Exactly.
That's got to be one of their biggest concerns, right?
It's definitely high on the list.
Yeah.
But what's really fascinating is they've even identified like a checkpoint
Oh, okay.
on the way to full-blown AI R&D.
Okay.
They're looking out for AI that can handle complex software engineering tasks
Right.
that would normally take a human expert hours to complete.
Okay, so they see this as a sign, like a red flag.
Exactly,
Yeah.
like a canary in the coal mine.
Things are progressing too quickly
Yeah,
and could get out of hand.
absolutely. If an AI can do that,
Right.
it's a clear indication that it's approaching a level of sophistication that requires even more stringent safety measures.
So Anthropic isn't just sitting around hoping for the best.
No, they're not.
They're taking concrete steps.
They're taking action.
Yeah, to make sure that
Yeah.
these worst-case scenarios
Right.
don't actually happen.
They're trying to get ahead of it.
Yeah.
They've created this new role called the Responsible Scaling Officer.
Okay.
And this person is basically the AI safety superhero.
So they're the ones who are responsible for making sure that AI development doesn't go off the rails.
That's a big part of their job.
What does that even look like?
Well, they have a really big job.
Yeah.
They need to stay on top of all the latest developments in AI, keep a close eye on how these systems are evolving,
Right. Yeah.
and be ready to step in
Yeah.
if anything starts getting too close to those capability thresholds we talked about.
So it's like having a dedicated watchdog
Exactly.
whose sole job is to make sure things don't get out of control.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And they're not just relying on one person to do this.
Okay.
Anthropic is also putting in place strict deployment and security standards.
Right.
You can think of it as like a multi-layered security system for AI.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What do these standards actually involve?
So on the deployment side,
Totally.
they're looking at things like controlling how AI can be used, who has access to it, and how to prevent it from being misused.
So it's about making sure that the AI is only used for good.
Right.
And not for,
not for anything nefarious.
Anything bad.
Exactly.
What about the security standards?
Those are all about protecting the AI systems themselves. They want to make sure that these systems can't be hacked, stolen, or tampered with. It's like building a digital fortress to protect the AI from falling into the wrong hands.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But AI is constantly evolving, right?
That's the challenge.
So how can they be sure that these safeguards will actually work in the long run?
That's where rigorous testing comes in.
Okay.
Anthropic puts their AI models through all kinds of tests to try and find weaknesses or potential dangers.
Right.
They even hire expert red teams.
Oh, interesting.
To try and break their systems.
It's like ethical hackers.
Ethical hackers, but for AI.
For AI.
Exactly.
Okay.
Their job is to think like a bad guy.
Gotcha.
And try to find ways to exploit the AI.
Right.
And that helps Anthropic to patch any vulnerabilities before they become a real problem.
Before they become a real problem, okay.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
They recognize that AI is advancing at warp speed.
Yeah.
So their policy isn't set in stone.
Oh.
It's a living document.
Okay.
Meaning they're constantly updating it.
So it's more like a dynamic strategy guide than like a fixed...
Yeah, it has to be flexible and adaptable to keep up with the rapid pace of AI development.
Okay, so speaking of adaptability, one of the things that really stands out to me about Anthropic's approach is their commitment to transparency.
That's a key part of their strategy.
Yeah.
They understand that secrecy can breed distrust, so they're being very open about their processes and their findings.
So they're not just saying that they're doing all this, they're actually showing their work?
Exactly. They're publishing summaries of their findings.
Okay.
They're soliciting feedback from outside experts.
Right.
And they've even committed to notifying the U.S. government.
Wow.
If their AI crosses certain lines.
That's a level of openness that we don't often see.
I agree.
Especially when it comes to cutting-edge technology.
It's pretty remarkable.
It sounds like they're really trying to set a new standard for the industry.
I think they are.
Yeah.
And it's not just about setting a standard, it's about building trust.
Right.
They want the public and policymakers to have confidence that they're taking AI safety seriously.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Trust is going to be absolutely crucial.
It's essential.
As AI plays a bigger and bigger role in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But I think it would be helpful to break down those AI safety levels.
Yeah, let's do that.
A bit more.
Let's dive a little deeper.
What exactly do those look like in practice?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And one that deserves a closer look.
So let's dive into that in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good. Okay, so you're probably wondering, what do these AI safety levels actually look like?
Right, what does that mean in practice?
In action.
Yeah.
So let's start with, the lowest level.
Okay.
ASL1.
Right.
This is basically the no worries category.
Okay.
Think of it as the AI equivalent of a house cat.
Okay.
It might, scratch you if you're not careful.
Right.
But it's not going to bring down civilization.
Right.
So a basic chat bot from a few years ago or a chess playing AI, those would fall under ASL1.
Okay, so pretty harmless stuff.
Yeah, pretty harmless.
What about ASL2?
Okay, so ASL2.
That's where we find most of today's advanced AI, right?
Right. This is where things start to get a little bit more...
Like Anthropic's Claude.
Interesting.
Yeah.
These AI systems are starting to show glimpses of potentially dangerous capabilities.
Okay.
But they're not quite there yet.
Can you give me an example?
Sure.
What kind of capabilities are we talking about?
Well, for instance, they might be able to provide instructions on building dangerous things.
Okay.
But the key here is that the information they provide isn't reliable enough or detailed enough to actually pose a serious threat.
So it's not that the AI is intentionally trying to cause harm.
No.
It's more like...
It's more like it's still learning.
Yeah.
And it might,
spit out some bad information along the way.
Spit out some bad information along the way. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why Anthropic has put those baseline safety measures in place at ASL2. So things like their usage policy and model cards, which provide guidelines for appropriate use.
So they're trying to make sure that people are using these AI systems responsibly.
Exactly.
And that they're aware of the potential risks.
Right.
What about ASL3?
Okay, so ASL3...
That's where things start to get really serious.
This is the uh-oh category.
Okay.
ASL3 is reserved for AI systems that pose a significant risk of causing, like, catastrophic harm.
Right.
This could be because the AI itself is becoming more autonomous.
Okay.
Or because it's capable of being misused in dangerous ways.
So this is where those capability thresholds we talked about earlier really come into play.
Exactly. If an AI system crosses that threshold for developing CBRN weapons,
right,
or if it starts exhibiting signs of autonomous AI R&D, it would immediately be classified as ASL3.
And that triggers a whole new set of safeguards.
Much stricter ones, yeah.
Okay.
At this level, Anthropic would have to demonstrate that they've done extensive threat modeling and red teaming.
Right.
They'd also need to show that they've implemented robust security measures to prevent misuse and theft of the AI's core code.
So they're essentially saying, we're not going to release anything that could pose a serious threat.
That's right.
Even if it means, missing out on some competitive advantage.
Yeah.
It's impressive that they're willing to prioritize.
I think it's admirable.
Safety over, potential profits.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that even at ASL3, we're still dealing with systems that are in many ways predictable.
Okay.
We understand their limitations, we can anticipate their behavior, and we have ways to contain them if things go wrong.
But what about ASL4 and beyond?
Okay.
Sounds like we're heading into
uncharted territory.
Uncharted territory.
Yeah, ASL4 and above is where things get really interesting and a little bit more sci-fi, yeah. We're talking about AI systems that are so advanced, their capabilities may surpass our current understanding.
So at this point, we're basically writing the rule book as we go.
In many ways, yes.
Yeah.
We don't even have fully defined criteria for ASL4 yet.
Wow.
Because we're still trying to wrap our heads around what those systems might look like.
Right.
And what kinds of risks they might pose.
It's a bit like trying to prepare for an alien encounter.
That's a great analogy.
We have some general ideas about what to expect.
Yeah.
But we know we could be completely surprised.
Absolutely.
And just like with a potential alien encounter, we need to be prepared for a wide range of possibilities.
Oh, the range of possibilities.
Yeah. What kind of safeguards are even possible at that level?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It's still early days, but Anthropic is actively researching new techniques for ensuring the safety of these highly advanced systems.
Okay.
One area they're exploring is something called interpretability methods.
Okay. Interpretability methods.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
So it basically involves trying to understand the AI's internal decision-making process.
Okay.
It's like trying to read its mind.
So it's not enough to just monitor its behavior.
Right.
We need to understand.
We need to understand.
Its motivations, its goals.
Its goals, yeah.
That sounds incredibly complex.
It is very complex. Yeah.
And there's no guarantee of success.
Right.
But by putting these safeguards in place, by doing the research and by having these difficult conversations, we're increasing our chances of navigating the future of AI safely and responsibly.
It's clear that Anthropic is really trying to lead the way in this regard.
I think so.
They're not just building powerful AI, they're building it with a conscience.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And that's a distinction that will become increasingly important as we venture further into this age of AI.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
From, the relatively harmless AI of today to the potentially world-altering AI of the future.
Yeah, it's a wide spectrum.
But there's one more critical aspect of Anthropic's responsible scaling policy that we need to address.
Okay.
And that's transparency and external input.
Right. This is where things get really interesting from a societal perspective.
Yeah.
Anthropic isn't just making these decisions behind closed doors.
They're actively seeking feedback and collaborating with others to ensure the safety and ethical development of AI.
Okay, let's dive into that in the final part of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we've talked about how Anthropic classifies these AI systems based on their potential for harm and the safeguards they're putting in place. But what really sets them apart, I think,
I agree,
is this emphasis on transparency and external input.
They're really trying to bring in outside voices.
It's too big of an issue to tackle on their own.
Exactly. It's a shared responsibility. And they're not just talking about it.
Right.
They're actually taking steps to make sure that their work is open to scrutiny, and that they're getting feedback from a wide range of people and organizations.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice?
So one way they're doing this is they're publishing summaries of their capability and safeguards reports.
Okay.
And these reports go into detail about
their assessments of AI capabilities.
Right.
And the measures they're taking to mitigate risks.
So they're giving us a peek behind the curtain and letting us see how they're approaching AI safety.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And they're not just sharing information.
Okay.
They're actually soliciting feedback from external experts.
Okay.
We're talking cybersecurity specialists, biosecurity experts, AI ethicists.
So they're trying to get input from a lot of different people.
A wide range of perspectives, and that's really important.
You'd think a company working on cutting-edge AI would want to keep all this stuff secret.
You would, but I think Anthropic understands that secrecy can backfire. And by being open about their processes and their findings, they're actually building trust with the public.
With policymakers, with everyone who's going to be impacted by this technology.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that trust is going to be essential as we move forward, right?
AI is only going to become more powerful.
More pervasive.
And more integrated into our lives.
It's the future.
Yeah.
And I think Anthropic is setting a really high bar for the industry.
Yeah.
And hopefully this approach will become more the norm rather than the exception.
But it's not just about industry self-regulation, right?
Right.
Anthropic has also made a commitment to notify the U.S. government if they believe their AI has crossed certain thresholds.
That's right. Especially when it comes to those really dangerous capabilities we talked about.
Yeah, the CBRN, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
So they're acknowledging that AI safety isn't just a technical issue.
It's much bigger than that.
It's a societal issue.
Absolutely.
And it's one that requires
a coordinated effort.
Yeah, like between industry, government, the public.
All stakeholders need to be involved.
So they're taking a really proactive approach.
I think so.
Working with regulators to try and shape the conversation around
the future.
AI safety and ethics.
Yeah, they want to be part of the solution, not the problem.
So after digging into all of this, what's the key takeaway for you? What should our listeners be thinking about?
Well, I think the main takeaway is that Anthropic is taking AI safety really seriously.
Yeah.
They're not just trying to build powerful AI.
Right.
They're trying to build it responsibly.
And they're doing it in a way that's open, transparent, and accountable.
All of those things.
It's refreshing to see a company.
Yeah, I agree.
That's not only thinking about the potential benefits of AI, but also the potential risks.
And they're not shying away from those risks.
And not only that, but actively trying to mitigate those risks.
Trying to get ahead of them.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point to end on.
Yeah.
Anthropic's approach is a reminder that we all have a role to play in shaping the future of AI.
Absolutely.
It's not just up to the companies that are developing.
Right, it's up to all of us.
It's up to all of us to make sure that this technology is used for good.
It's a shared responsibility.
If this deep dive has piqued your interest, I highly recommend checking out Anthropic's full policy document. It goes into even more detail about their approach.
It's worth a read.
And of course, if you want to explore the world of AI further, be sure to subscribe to the Before AGI podcast for more in-depth discussions on the latest trends, breakthroughs, and challenges in the field.
Keep learning.
And don't forget to check out my YouTube channel, Ian Ochieng AI, for tutorials and insights to help you navigate the exciting world of artificial intelligence.
It's a fascinating field.
Until next time, stay curious.